What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was not the end of your story? What if the very thing that broke you was the thing that was building you? Today we explore one of the most powerful questions ever asked by a human being. Why does God allow bad things to happen? And we find the answer in one of the most remarkable lives ever recorded. The life of Joseph, a 17-year-old boy who had everything taken from him, and who discovered something that will change the way you see your own suffering, forever. Imagine the scene. A teenage boy walks toward his brothers on an ordinary morning. He has no idea that this ordinary day will destroy the life he knows. Within hours, everything changes. He is betrayed by the people closest to him. He is thrown into a pit. He is sold into slavery. He is separated from his father. He is carried into a foreign country where he knows no one. If you had interviewed Joseph that evening, what would the evidence suggest? That God had abandoned him. That doing right had no reward. That faith was foolish. But that is not what happened. Here is what makes Joseph's story so uncomfortable. Joseph was not a bad person. Joseph obeyed. Joseph remained faithful. Joseph worked hard. Joseph honored God. And everything got worse. This collides with something many people secretly believe. If I do the right thing, God should protect me from suffering. Joseph's story says otherwise. And that is deeply unsettling. Because if Joseph could suffer this deeply while doing everything right, then so could you. So could any of us, but the story does not end in the pit. Time passes. Joseph is sold to a man named Potiphar, a powerful official in Egypt. And slowly, things begin to improve. Joseph works diligently. He rises in Potiphar's house. He earns trust. He earns responsibility. And just when it seems the suffering is over, it gets worse again. Potiphar's wife tells a lie. Joseph is falsely accused. Joseph is thrown into prison. More injustice, more waiting, more confusion, more silence from God. And here is where the viewer begins to ask the same question Joseph must have asked. Why doesn't God intervene? Where is he? Does he see what is happening? Does he care? These are not weak questions. These are the most honest questions a human being can ask. And the Bible does not rush past them. Joseph sits in that prison, not for days, not for weeks, for years. Years of silence, years of waiting, years without answers, and then something remarkable begins to happen. Not in a single dramatic moment, but quietly, slowly, invisibly. Look at the pattern. The pit led to slavery. The slavery led to Potiphar's house. Potiphar's house led to prison. Prison led to a connection with Pharaoh's cupbearer. The cupbearer led to Pharaoh. Pharaoh led to Joseph being placed in the second highest position in all of Egypt. And that position led to saving millions of people from famine, including the very brothers who had betrayed him. Every single event that looked like a disaster was quietly, invisibly moving Joseph toward his destiny. Not despite the suffering, through it. Joseph could not see this. Not from the pit, not from the slave market, not from the prison cell. He could only see the chapter he was in. He could not see the whole story. And neither can you, not yet. The moment comes. Joseph stands before Pharaoh. He interprets Pharaoh's dream. 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. Pharaoh is astonished, and in one extraordinary day, Joseph goes from prisoner to the second most powerful man in Egypt. He oversees the storing of grain, he prepares an entire nation, he saves countless lives. And then his brothers arrive. Famine has driven them to Egypt. They bow before the official who holds their lives in his hands. They do not recognize him. But Joseph recognizes them. The very men who threw him in the pit, the very men who sold him, the very men who broke his father's heart. And Joseph weeps, not from bitterness, but from understanding. Because he can now see what they could not. He can now see the whole story, and he speaks one of the most profound sentences in all of Scripture. Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Notice what Joseph does not say. He does not say what happened was not bad. It was bad. The betrayal was real, the slavery was real, the false accusation was real, the suffering was real, the evil was real. The Bible never pretends otherwise. But Joseph reveals something that changes everything. God can work through evil without being the author of evil. The brothers intended harm, God intended good. Both things were true simultaneously. And this is perhaps the most important thing you will ever understand about suffering. God does not always prevent the bad thing, but He is always working in it, always moving, always weaving, always building something you cannot yet see. This brings us to the heart of the question. Most people ask, why does God allow bad things to happen? And Scripture answers with another question. What if you cannot yet see the entire story? Joseph could not. From the pit, he could not see Egypt. From the slave market, he could not see Potiphar. From the prison, he could not see Pharaoh. From the moment of betrayal, he could not see the embrace of forgiveness. He only had the chapter he was living, and that chapter looked like the end. But it was not the end, it was the beginning. What if the chapter you are living right now is not the end of your story either? What if the pit you are sitting in is the very thing moving you towards something you cannot yet see? What if God is not absent in your suffering? What if He is working in it? What if the silence is not abandonment? What if it is preparation? Joseph's answer was not a theology lecture, it was a life. 30 years of a life. Full of pain, full of injustice, full of silence. And full of a God who never stopped working even when Joseph could not see Him. God can work through evil without being the author of evil. And perhaps the most courageous thing you can do in your own suffering is to say what Joseph eventually understood. I cannot see the whole story yet, but God can, and He is not finished.